Patty has a vocal range of about 4 octaves and has been releasing chart-topping songs for decades. So it's no surprise to hear that she's been nicknamed The Voice, which is ironic considering that she spent most of her life too afraid to speak up for herself.
Sandi Patty is the most awarded female vocalist in contemporary Christian music history. Yet for decades, she struggled to find her voice because of a dark secret she had locked away. When she was only 6 years old, Sandi was sexually abused by a family friend who was also a first-grade teacher. In her book, The Voice, Sandi shares how she sang to millions about God's love when she hardly believed it herself.
Well, Sandi Patty is here with us now, and it's so good to have you on the 700 Club again.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Reading your book, The Voice, was just so eye-opening and touching and frustrating at the same time, because what happened to you as a 6-year-old shouldn't happen to any child, but happens to lots of children.
Yeah.
Your mom and dad were singing themselves at the time. That's where she gets that amazing voice and musical talent from. And they traveled some, and so they had you stay with, I mean, who wouldn't put their child with a first-grade teacher?
Exactly.
You know, and that, you were there for a week, and every night, without fail, that woman molested you.
Yes.
Tell me what went through your mind at that time as a 6-year-old. I mean, I can't imagine.
I was already kind of a shy kid anyway, and a very compliant kid. And so what sexual abuse does, it rips the sacred out of a child. Yeah. And so my already quiet voice really became silenced. And you start to take in and believe the lies that it's your fault, and you were, you know, you deserved this. You're a bad girl. And if you tell anybody, they're not going to believe you, or you'll get in trouble. So for, you know, another 30 years, I never said a word and didn't talk to my parents until 35 years later.
Wow.
And, but I'm so very grateful to be on this side of it, because I know that God was faithful in all of the healing.
Yeah, so much of what you went through, I think how perpetrators do this to a child is the repetition, repetition. And at that time, as you point out in your book, you know, there were no cell phones, there were no computers available, your mom and dad were gone. I mean, you don't even know how, as a 6-year-old, how do you even get in touch with them?
Right.
Yeah, so you were so alone in the midst of this. And you handled it by just pretending you were sleeping and being, but enduring, just enduring. And yet, this woman was smart enough to say to you, if you tell your parents what happened. Is that why you didn't tell?
I think, yeah, you believe the adults in your life, you know, because as a kid,
especially adults your parents put you.
Right. As a kid, adults are safe. You don't know any different, and especially a teacher. And so when she said, you know, if you tell, I'll, you know, we'll do this again or whatever.
Oh, and they're gonna believe me, and every child thinks I'm just a kid. Of course they're gonna believe him or her.
Exactly, exactly.
So how did this, Sandi, impact your life after that? Because when it removes the sacred, it has to touch everything.
It does. You know, I think of it as, in a way, it set my whole clock wrong. It turned it upside down. And so what I took in, the lies, I sort of viewed life through that lens. And so that I wasn't worth anything, that I wasn't valuable or beautiful or lovely. And I was damaged. I was damaged and disqualified ever from God loving me. Your
mom and dad must have been horrified to hear this years later. How did you begin to put the pieces together? Let's talk about, first of all, that even you married shortly on in the early phases of your amazing success. And you say in the book that it was 2 wounded people coming together. So it was bound not to be healthy or last long.
Broken people make a broken marriage. That's not an excuse, but it's a reason.
It's a reality,
And I think as I began to grow and really understand, let myself be vulnerable for the first time in my life to a group of girlfriends who'd walked through life, and, you know, to hear them talk about the struggles in their life, I kind of went, oh, maybe I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a safe place to say something about it. I'll tell you, Terry, when God began to put his truth in my heart, I started Bible Study Fellowship, and I had the time away from home, away from the road, to be home. And I had the time to invest in Bible Study Fellowship, which taught me two things. One, God's word is so powerful. And when his word begins to put it in your life, the lies have to have someplace else to go. So they're going to burp up or they're going to bubble up, but they have to have someplace else to go. And I think the second thing that I learned was what a sweet community it can be to share life with other people who are also walking, you know, just step by step. And when my discussion group began to just be real about their lives and what they were going through, I thought, I just didn't know you could do that. I didn't know you could be honest and vulnerable before the Lord. And so as I began to learn that, that really helped influence how I began to speak up and to speak out.
You know, I think of one incident in the book where you talk about your dad so innocently when you shared something that had been done to you at school unfairly by a friend, asking you what you had done to deserve that. You know, as parents, we're so wanting our kids to be kind, to be compassionate, to be merciful, to treat others well. But because of what had happened to you, this was like one more, you know, what's wrong with me? We have to be so careful as parents what we say, don't we?
You know, it really is true. My husband and I have raised 8 kids, and we've gotten so much more wrong than we have right.
Most of us have.
And, you know, I have found, somebody said to me one time, if you don't know what to say to your kid when they're confiding in you about something, a great phrase is, tell me more about that. Because if, like my dad, he's such an encourager, and you know my parents.
I adore your parents.
He's such an encourager, and he wants to encourage so much. But already having the broken lens that I had.
It wasn't your dad, what he said, it was the brokenness that was in your heart.
I heard you don't need to talk about this. You should not speak up. That's not at all his tender heart. And I actually called him ahead of the book release. I said, Dad, I put this story in here. I want you to know it was not about you. It was about the brokenness and how I viewed things.
What would you say to people who are watching right now, there are so many people who have been misused, abused, molested, even raped? How do you begin to come out of the mess of that to wholeness and truth?
Well, I think the very first thing is the first place to start finding your voice is listening. You begin to listen to the people around you. If they're willing to share bits and pieces of the not so pretty parts about their story, chances are they're going to be a good one to listen. And so begin to listen to the people around you. I always think, find somebody who's a little farther along in your journey, than you are. And I have always been a fan of good, solid Christian counseling, because there are some issues that you just need the time and the space and a gifted counselor to be able to guide you gently towards God, which also then helps with that healing.
I want to mention that your book is called The Voice, and I'm mentioning the book now, such a pretty cover. And listening to God's voice and finding your own awesome, awesome life endeavor. Sandi's going to sing for us in just a moment, but first of all, tell us about the song you're singing today.
The song I'm singing is one I recorded many years ago. I love the lyric. I'm a lyric person, and so words, when they were hard for me as a kid, music was that way for me to speak my voice. And I think it's just a great reminder that we don't always have all the facts when we see people, but in heaven's eyes, there are no losers.
Amen.
In heaven's eyes, no hopeless cause.
I'm going to let you move over to the piano where we await your performance with great anticipation, while I tell folks that for more on Sandi's story, you really should check out her book. It's called The Voice, Listening for God's Voice and Finding Your Own, and it's available in stores nationwide.